This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free. He goes to get wide. Edge of the box. Yes! Great goal! What a hit from Oliveira! It's wide! They've only gone and done it again! Forest back in the lead! From Morgan Gibbs White! Oh, what he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic!
Hello and welcome to this edition of Red Side of the Trent as we come to you shortly after Nottingham Forest's 3-0 defeat at the Emirates Stadium away at Arsenal. It was a pretty bruising encounter. We have a full house here today. We have Adam, Reese and Lee all in attendance, which is quite a rarity for Sunday morning. Normally one of us has something on, whether it's football in Sunday League or running a line somewhere and getting abused for that or God knows what else. But yeah, it's quite nice to have a Forest here. So there is that one positive from a pretty dismal display yesterday. So we'll hop right into it because I don't really want to spend too much time on it at all. Adam, we'll start with you. The team came in. Obviously, there's no Gibbs White, no Anderson, and no Woods. Obviously, Nuno did sort of touch upon that, or his quote, respect the jet lag, which I think is going to be everyone's sort of little meme whenever they come back from holiday from abroad and sort of post that to their work chat or whatever else. But you said jet lag, and sure enough, obviously Taiwo came in. You'll see a bit. Obviously, both wingers started. It was a 4-3-3. Were you quite surprised at that? I mean, it was a bit weird because if you looked at both fan bases before, like both fan bases seemed quite surprised at the team they put out, which in theory could have made for quite an interesting spectacle. But what did you make of the Forest side first and foremost?
I was obviously surprised that Gibbs White and Anderson were both. I know Anderson didn't go to the under-21s at all, so kind of you knew he was carrying something because between him and Gibbs White, they were kind of trying to get through the 90 together. Gibbs White going away with England and then not being able to play for us is kind of, I get it's annoyed some fans, and then I've seen obviously Reese and a couple of people talk about it, that the opportunity to go away with England when he's right on the cusp of being in that squad and kind of trying to nail down maybe a squad place at least, maybe not a starting place. It's kind of too hard to turn down, and he impressed with an assist in the game against Greece, wasn't it? So I get that situation, and I get people's perspective of like club over country. I'm very much club over country, unfortunately. It's just one of those things. But yeah, surprised that neither of them played. And then I think Nuno kind of went with maybe what he thought would kind of stifle Arsenal. Thought like Ødegaard just, I mean, we'll probably get into it, but he just absolutely tore us apart. Him and Saka were sensational, and we couldn't do anything about it. And I think in hindsight, maybe we should have gone with the 3-5-2 or 3-4-1-2 or whatever you want to call it. Happy to see Taiwo start, and I thought in as bad a game as it was, I did think he showed glimmers of the old Taiwo, and I thought he's definitely got still something to offer us, especially if we don't get a striker in January. So yes, a bit disappointing, and obviously don't want to talk about it too much, but I think he kind of got it wrong, and he kind of got it right with what we had, but hindsight and everything.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of discussion points for me. I mean, one of them obviously, I see Pat Brett just come straight in and said we've obviously had the last two games we had no midfield, and you know, like you said in our chat yesterday, Adam, like that, our midfield options are looking pretty thin right now without Sangare and Danilo. So hopefully they're back sooner rather than later. But Reece, obviously it was a dismal start. There's no other way for it. It looked like that we were still in the international break, really. We hadn't woken up at all. Arsenal were running riot from the first few minutes, really. We were struggling to put passes together. Obviously they had a goal disallowed quite fortuitously. I mean, that's one of those where I was talking to Burns about that yesterday, actually, and we were sort of saying, like, it's annoying for a fan, but offside's offside ultimately, so at least the right decision was made, but we need semi-automated offsides for that, really. But not long after that, obviously, Forest eventually cracked. Some nice interplay between Ødegaard and Saka, but why I question here is, yes, Saka's hit it beautifully well, and you know, there's no chance, nothing to keep with about that whatsoever, but Moreno and Ward-Prowse, how have they let between them Saka have the ball for about 7 to 10 seconds in the Forest penalty box. He's always going onto his left foot. Why? How has that been allowed to happen?
Well, we say this with Callum Hudson-Odoi, don't we? Why do teams know he's going to check back on his right foot, but they can't stop it? And that's the reality. We just couldn't.
I guess
stop
Hudson-Odoi does it in like 1-2 seconds. Saka had the ball for nearly 10 seconds there.
But this is a world-class player, isn't it? He's one of the best right wingers in the Premier League without a shadow of a doubt, and he's coming off fresh. And they started, like you said, Christian, on fire. Should have been probably ahead. I mean, the offside was minimal, wasn't it? It's one of them to get the lines out, and that Moreno's knee was offside, wasn't it? But as football purists, you look at that and thinking, well, you kind of, if we didn't have VAR, you'd be happy to have the advantage to the attacker there, really. And so we was lucky there. And then them two just started on fire, Saka and Odegaard, the two world-class players, like I said, coming off fresh, and we just couldn't deal with them. And that's the reality, unfortunately. And yeah, it's not good. It's not good for us. There's just too many players watching him go along the edge of the box. But, unfortunately, he's a world-class player and he's fired it in the top corner. When you start as slowly as we did, it was a matter of time before we was going to get punished. And, with the options we had, where the team was just really disjointed once you get there, which you could see from the start, I think it was always going to be a tough afternoon. With his best team, it was always going to be a tough afternoon. Arsenal aren't Ilkeston Town, are they? They're one of the best sides in the world, let's be honest. And, it was like we were playing some fodder of a side because they've lost a couple of games. They're a top side, Arsenal. And they've got two players who we've mentioned, Saka and Odegaard, who will hurt any side in world football if they're on it. And especially when, they was on it and we're letting them be on it yesterday. And yeah, just not the best start, was it?
No, it was poor. I mean, Greg has made a good point in the comments that the line did flag it, to be fair, offside Moreno on pitch. So it wouldn't have stood regardless whether VAR got involved or not.
Yeah.
So
that's one of them where, as a fan, you're happy with the referee's call. But
yeah,
what I'm saying is, if obviously the referee didn't flag, you can kind of hold your hands up and go, well, it's bleeding minimal, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit small. One of those sort of like thicker, thinner lines sort of thing. But after that, I mean, Arsenal did what Arsenal do. They start very fast. If we're in the first half an hour of a game, they've normally got it wrapped up and they sort of hold your arm's length afterwards. Forest did creep into it ever so slightly. We had our only noticeable effort on goal, I think, when Yates pretty much was picked out from a set piece and then pinged it into the bloody clock. The clock ends of Arsenal. And then Lee, we got to half-time 1-0. That was probably the best case scenario given how that first half went. It was like, okay, a chance to regroup, a chance to go again, and within 5 minutes, it's game over. Again, for me, I don't want to sound like I'm going to dig anyone out, but Ward-Prowse just stood watching Partey for a good couple of seconds before he decided to rush out to him. By that point, his foot's back and the ball's in the back of the net pretty much. What was your take on the goal?
Yeah, nail on the head, really. I actually thought it was a weird game to throw Ward-Prowse back into. Obviously, not being privy to watching the full game, from what I gather, it was a pretty poor performance from him. Yeah, looking at the stats, he had the highest passing accuracy. I know that some people like to wheel that out for certain other players. I mean, that probably, if Ward-Prowse was so bad, that probably indicates how bad a day it was, I suppose. But yeah, certainly for that goal, he was just far too slow to close him down. Thomas Partey loves a banger against us, doesn't he? I mean, I'm sure he has done it against other clubs, but he just seems to love picking the top corner out against us. But yeah, just far too static, far too slow. But yeah, I'll go back to my original point. I thought it was a strange game. It probably does highlight how thin we are on the ground in midfield. But yeah, when you've not played, I think his last start was when he got sent off against Chelsea, wasn't it? So to go all that time with not starting a game and then to be thrown in there holding things together when you've got Martin Odegaard running around, I just thought it was going to be a tough assignment for him, to be fair. That's not me looking for something to defend him with, but I just think it was always going to be he must have even looked at himself and thought, great, I'm buzzing, I'm playing again, but for God's sake, it's against these, probably the best midfield in the Premier League. Yeah.
To be fair, we chucked him in at Liverpool away when he'd not played all season, I believe. That was his first game, wasn't it, for us?
Yeah, possibly, yeah. I know what you mean. It's a similar situation, I guess, isn't it? It's, yeah, I don't know. with him holding, and from what I gather, again, having not seen much of the game, it sounded like Yates was the one further forward. Well, everyone's always telling us how good Yates is at being a narc and doing the dirty stuff and all that sort of stuff. So I think, given how we know Ward-Prowse can pass a football, I think it would have probably made more sense to have him a little bit more advanced than Yates, perhaps. But again, with the options that are available to Nuno, he's kind of got to try these different things out at the minute. So, I guess we'll see with his next team selection, because there's not going to be anyone in midfield coming back. So I guess we'll see from his next team selection whether he feels that those three is something that can work, or whether he just uses the same personnel and tweaks the roles that he's given them. But yeah, certainly from the goals perspective, he didn't cover himself in much glory there.
That's actually a very good point, and something I found very, very bizarre. Because it was weird, because we all know Dominguez is probably our best pressure on the ball, right? And we've all seen in recent weeks where Yates has been in a deeper role, he's actually been quite competent at his job. He's done his job pretty well, obviously getting a lot of plaudits for that. So much so some of our fans have been calling for him to get the England squad. So, and press as well, the Athletic. Yeah, it was the other way around. It was Dominguez deeper and Yates was the one pushing up the pitch. And it just felt like they were constantly being overran, because Arsenal just picked that pass in between them, and then Odegaard suddenly was like exposing Ward-Prowse every time, pretty much, and it was just so frustrating. But one other thing that I didn't pick up on at halftime, Adam, was Elanga came off, looked like an injury. He had a sort of weird tangle with Jorginho. I don't know if it was the way he landed, or because obviously he got a little tap across the chest, sorry, and then he was sort of holding his collarbone for the rest of the game. It didn't really seem that much contact, but obviously, Jota Silva came on at half-time, but I suppose the question I'll ask is, would you have made that change anyway, regardless of injury, given the performance levels?
Yeah, quite possibly. It was really strange, because I think early on we had like a bit of I say half a chance, but Olaina and Elanga linked up quite well early doors, and Aina pulled the ball across for Hudson-Odoi. I actually think he should have picked out Elanga, to be honest, rather than Hudson-Odoi there, but Elanga, I don't know what's happened this season. He's shown in very, very, and I mean minute moments this season of what he can do, but largely he's been so disappointing in comparison to last season. And unfortunately, you have to go off last season because he was so good at times. Like, he was one of our best players. And this year, I don't know what's happened to him, but he's stopped utilising the one thing he's got as a weapon, which is speed. He does not want to run and try and run past a player whatsoever, especially down the outside, where I think that should be his bread and butter. And I don't know what's happened to him. I just feel like he's either low on confidence or just yeah, I think that's what it is. Football is a confidence game, and he just looks like he's shot of it, and we're trying to kind of play him through it, but it's just not working for him. And I don't know if that's because we don't have the sustained amount of possession within midfield to then keep feeding him the ball and keep giving him the opportunities. And when he does get him, he's kind of a bit worried to lose the ball, but then that's making him lose the ball more. I just don't know. But yeah, I thought the substitution should have come earlier. Obviously, people in hindsight wanted Jota to start in the number 10. But I think it's such a difficult place to go and start a player like Jota at Arsenal, because then if it did go wrong, which it did anyway, people would have been lambasting the manager, saying, why have you started a player that's never started away at Arsenal in the Premier League, and kind of like hung him out to dry almost. But yeah, I'd have took him off anyway. I just thought he's been so poor for a number of weeks, unfortunately, Elanga. And I say that kind of with grimaced teeth, because I like him. I like him as a player. I think he's got a lot to offer. He's just not showing it, unfortunately.
It's strange, isn't it? Because I feel like from set piece situations, he seems to be like a real threat. Obviously, we saw that against Newcastle, for example. We got the assist from the corner from Murillo, and obviously the data nerds will say that his set piece delivery is like the most effective in Europe or something ridiculous, which is quite something attractive. But you're right, in open play, it just seems a different player. Like, I've obviously got this theory as well. I don't know, whether it was because I know Cooper played on the left, but it did seem in that sort of the 4 months we had for Cooper last season, he was much more effective, I thought, than towards the back end with Nuno, whereas maybe a bit more structured. I don't know, but it just seems bizarre. Like you said, he doesn't take people on anymore. He just sort of seems to stop on cut inside or whatever else. He doesn't seem to sort of I don't know if it's a confidence thing. Obviously, he's been dropped from the Sweden team now as well. So it's not just us as fans are sort of noticing it. His national teams noticed it as well. So I don't know. Maybe need some time out of the first team. I really don't know.
Can I slightly disagree on it? Because you say he didn't take no one on yesterday. Well, he skipped by Jorginho and he got brought down. So he took someone on there, hasn't he?
But what's done after that when he was at the ball, where he's just
he clearly injured his shoulder, didn't he? And that's why he went off at half time. Maybe the physio should have probably noticed that before and got him off if he was injured or he's got to come off. Now, don't get me wrong, he's nowhere near hit the heights as he has done last season. There's no denying that. But to say he's been poor for a number of weeks, he was really good against West Ham, I thought. He got their player sent off by taking somebody on. He got an assist against Newcastle. So I think to say he's been, but it's an assist. It goes down on it goes down on the stats, unfortunately. But I don't think he's like I said, he's hit the heights nowhere near last season, but he's not as bad as it's being made out to be. Like I've seen comments like he's the swear word beginning with S because we can't swear on the pod anymore. He's clearly got ability. He's probably just struggling a little bit at the minute for confidence. And to be fair, now is the time, really, if he has got an injury, that Jota can come in for him, which probably is the right time. And hopefully it might give him a bit of time out of the team, and give him that maybe hunger to try and get back in. But I'm not going to go down the route personally. Think he's been absolutely dreadful. I don't agree with that personally.
I don't think he's been dreadful.
No, I just don't think he's been anywhere near as effective. Like he's shown it in
moments. Which is true, but we've just said that he's been poor for a number of weeks, which is not true.
But he's not shown a performance even above 60 minutes of where he's been consistent. And I get it, he's a winger. Wingers are like that. They come in and out of games, don't they, all the time? But he's just not. There's something that I kind of want to get him by the scruff of the neck, Reece, and just say, take a man on. And if you
I agree with that. It does need what springs to mind is the last game. I know it was the last game of the season, but the Burnley away where he skipped by his man, brilliant ball across the wood. And that combination last season was really good. I think we've mentioned this on the pod before. It was, I think, Palmer and Jackson, Bailey and Watkins. They were the only two who'd combine more. So I'm not saying he's near the heights of last season because he clearly isn't. That's factually true as well. I just don't think he's as bad as some are making out to be. But now is probably a time to give him some time out the side because he has picked up an injury, which I think obviously affected his performance yesterday because he was clearly, after he'd skipped by Jorginho and he was brought down, clearly struggling with it. Hence why I went off at half time. Probably should have been brought off earlier, really.
Yeah, it's a fair argument for that. To be fair, it's just a really strange incident, really. I don't know. It must have been the way he landed because,
it must have been.
It didn't seem too much in it.
Unless Jorginho's obviously pulled him by it, and it's
it's pulled something. Who knows? Well, I'll have to see what happens in that one. But
can I just jump in on Elanga as well?
Yeah, sure.
I tend to agree with a lot of what Reece has said there. To be honest, I think he's been poorer than last season. And that's the bar he's set for himself. I think the problem that we've got with certain fans this year is there's a shiny new signing that's not starting, ready to take his place. And last year there was never that sort of competition. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, I think, because you've got fans trying to justify making Elanga worse than he actually is so that Jota plays. And you've also got a situation where Elanga's probably feeling that heat of having some proper competition, so his performances are struggling because of that. But I tend to agree. I think he's 20. He's 22. I mean, maybe this is what we've become a bit as a Premier League club. Is everyone just? There's no in between anymore, is there? There's no giving any lenience because he's a young player. You've got to be 100% all the time, otherwise you've become a poor player, and it just seems a little bit harsh. If he was an established pro, we're forgetting that he hardly got picked at United as well. So he's like probably in his second full season as a regular in a starting 11 anyway. I just think he needs the help and support to get back to what he is, because the constant justification of him being, like Reece said, the word beginning with S, that's complete and utter nonsense. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just because you might want Jota Silva to play, I think you can say that Elanga's a good player, but he's struggling with a bit of confidence, and it'd be nice to see Silva given a run without having to somehow try and justify that Anthony Elanga's Alex Martin 2.0. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, that I totally agree with Lee there, and that's he's put my point across in better terminology. And I want to see Jota play. We all want to see Jota play. So, like I said, with
It's great we've got the
Elanga,
competition.
yeah, of course. With Elanga probably getting a bit of an injury now, it gives Jota a chance next Saturday, really. Well, Saturday coming.
It's interesting because, like, I actually had Jota down as one of our player performances because I actually thought he was quite poor yesterday, which I'm sure we'll get onto in due course. Which is why I sort of asked you like a question to begin with, without wanting to sort of do that sort of meme where the guy sort of throws the thing on a fire and the kitchen explodes or whatever like that. But so we'll come on to that in due course. But yeah, obviously the third goal, Reece. I mean, this isn't going to be a fun pod, is it? But I just think that it's so easy. It's so easy from Arsenal. It's like it's a sort of goal that we'd have conceded in the first season, and Williams, Ward-Prowse, and Sells all can do so much better for that. It was just like child's play watching Arsenal just move through like that. They didn't have to break out a first gear. They scored a very simple goal. But what did you think?
Yeah, probably similar to the goal, the Newcastle's third, wasn't it, where you look at it and think in isolation, that's should be stopped. But by that time, the game's probably gone away from us, hasn't it? I know fans will say, well, Newcastle one was only 2-1, but they had the upper hand, didn't they, at that time, and they had all the momentum. And the problem was for us yesterday is, you said it earlier, Christian, we did well to get in at half-time 1-0. And I put on my Twitter that whoever gets the second goal here, if they get it, it's game over. And for them to get it within, 4 minutes? It was the same, wasn't it, in the first season? I think we were 1-0 down, wasn't it? And I think, was it Reece Nelson who made it 2-0? And then in the end, they just ran away with it, which I guess is a positive yesterday that they haven't ended up getting like 5. So, yeah, unfortunately, the second half kind of, it went through the motions, didn't it, really? And Arsenal had us at arm's length, and you felt if we ever got back into the game, then they'd step it up a gear again. But why the game was going how it was, they didn't really have to do too much. And that goal was really just a team who unfortunately probably recognised that they'd lost the game. And of course, I think it was Wanyeri's first goal, wasn't it, in the Premier League? Was it youngest scorer since Fabregas? I believe I see him.
Something like that. He looks.
Yeah, he does. But they should be creating these players, these big clubs. They've got enough money to pump into the academies, and obviously Arsenal are in a brilliant catchment area, being in London. So, yeah, by that stage, I think it probably the heads have dropped, and we should have stopped it, shouldn't we? I made a few notes of it. He gets in between Ward-Prowse and Yates, and then by the time Ward-Prowse realises he's on his shoulder, the ball's been put across and he swept it in. Even if you watch it, I made a screenshot. There was an overload on the other side. I think Trossard's unmarked, and I watched the highlights and it didn't show the angle from behind the goal. So I know it's what you seen, Christian, that's crept in at Sells near post, but I guess, by that time, the game's done, isn't it? And disappointing goal we've conceded. But unfortunately, when your games are going away from you, you're going to concede these stupid goals, unfortunately, at this level, because you get punished.
Yeah, you do. So this is another goal contribution for Raheem Sterling against Forest as well. So one firmly on the nemesis list now. Yeah. And Sacco that's his third goal.
I didn't even realise he'd come on. Probably that's how much attention I was paying by the end, because the game, it just, like I said, it just drifted away from us. And
it was bad.
You just sorry, because I think after Partey's goal, you kind of wanted it to end, didn't you? Really?
Yeah. Yeah, you just sort of like begging for like a mercy whistle out of nowhere, like in The Simpsons where Mo sort of flies Homer out the ring. It's a bit like that after that second goal went in.
Yeah.
Lee, obviously, there was one very rare foray into the Arsenal half, and after the third goal, was led to disallowed goals. That apart from Wood getting in the way of Jota's goal-bound effort, unfortunately, was probably the only thing we really created of note. Wood sort of pinged it across goal, and Jota was there on hand to tap in. Obviously, he's 5 yards offside, but the fact that we're saying, what did you make of the move as the only positive of the Forest attacking play says quite a lot. But what did you make of the move in question at 3-0 down in the 90th minute?
Yeah, it was nice. It shows that we're not, I guess we still are capable of, again, this is another thing, not going back to the Elanga flame throwing and stuff again, but we've not all of it sort of become a bad team because Arsenal have turned us over in a home game against Forest. I mean, did anyone seriously expect us to kind of stay third and just keep winning against teams like Newcastle and Arsenal? Come on, I mean, it'd have been nice if we could have, got out of that away game with our unbeaten away run still intact, but it was always very unlikely. Let's be totally truthful about it. But yeah, it was a nice move. It shows that, like I say, we've not all of a sudden become a bad side because Arsenal have turned us over. I couldn't actually work out whether, I don't know, I think it was Wood who slipped him the ball across, wasn't it? I don't know. I think maybe he was suffering with jet lag because I think it was always totally obvious that he was miles offside. Maybe he could have. I think he's got enough credit in the bank to maybe bring that down and have a shot himself there. But that's just me. I quite like a centre forward in form in that position. I think I'd rather he just had a shot there, kind of bump his own stats up, even if Forest weren't going to take anything from the afternoon. But it was a nice move, and like I say, I still think we're massively on the right path. If someone
we're proper clutching at straws.
Yeah, I mean we are. It's a tough question to answer.
But
yeah,
barely got in there half the whole game.
No, we didn't have a shot on target. The performance was poor, wasn't it? But
I think the most disappointing for me is we've got Yates and Dominguez in centre midfield. Why aren't we just kicking folk at least?
I could get near him, Adam.
We'll get near him.
There was an opportunity, right? There was an opportunity.
They couldn't get near him.
There was an opportunity where the ball fell.
Game.
There was a ball that fell like kindly for Yates, and he had the opportunity to just go straight through Saliba and win the ball. And I just wish he'd done it because I just think it riled at least a few of our players up and riled them up a bit and kind of got them a bit of like, oh, we're getting. This is happening now.
We did get booked, didn't he, for chopping someone, Yates?
Yeah, he did. Ref played advantage. To be fair, he put his head in, didn't he, when Saka booted him in the head and stooped
him. Very brave of him.
I just think like Saka is someone that does not like getting kicked. Moreno, just first opportunity, just put him in Rose Ed, win the ball if you can at the same time, and just unsettle teams like that. We have to do more dark arts. Come on.
Which I agree with, but Moreno couldn't get near Saka yesterday.
Yeah, it's always
Well, just at least dead leg him, something. Just horrible. Just be horrible, man.
I'm going to say
yellow card. It doesn't matter. Come on.
Wait, you mean like what Gibbs White did for his second yellow against Brighton, and then we all used it as an excuse to moan at the ref?
It's like I watched Leicester yesterday, and in the first half, all three centre mids were on yellow cards because they hacked folk down, and then you just can't do anything. Then it's going to make life worse. The problem was yesterday we had three centre mids, which the idea was to keep us compact, and obviously we're still keeping the wingers in the team, which is to get out. The problem was the three centre mids, none of them have got that attacking mind like Anderson and Gibbs White, where they can link defence to attack. And the problem was as well, you're playing with three centre mids. One centre mid, the guy who's in the centre, has got to follow Odegaard and just stick to him. And we didn't do that. And that was the problem. He found so much space. And I kept seeing the midfielders looking at him in space. And he was just floating everywhere. Nobody was tracking him. I think back to the Newcastle away game where Gibbs White just stayed with Bruno Guimaraes and just stopped him playing. And when you give in, and this is Odegaard, who's 10 times better than Bruno Guimaraes. He's a world-class player, Odegaard. I've always said he's the heir to Kevin De Bruyne's throne, really. And if Arsenal hadn't become a title challenger, I think Man City probably would have ended up signing him. But he's such a good player, and we just let him have so much time and space yesterday. And then you've got a very, very good right winger who is going to just, cause problems. And them two just caused mayhem, didn't they? Let's be honest.
We needed a Ji-Sung Park on Odegaard. When he did against Park did it against Messi, didn't he, in that semi-final of the Champions League, and it worked to perfection. Yeah, Yates should have literally been that man. Just don't play football.
Yeah, that's not Yates' fault. Yeah, it's not Yates' fault at all. No, I just thought tactically, probably Nuno got it wrong there. We had to kind of man mark him and stop him. We said on the last pod, if we can stop Odegaard and Saka, we've got a chance, and we didn't. And that's why we got beat.
Nowhere near him. Yeah. It was just, I think, one thing I want to touch upon before we move on to, or two things I want to touch upon before we move on to player performances, which again will be fun. Lee, obviously, I noticed you mentioned this point as well, and raised both of you this morning. So Forest have now considered, obviously, gone from having a very good defensive record to conceding 6 goals in 2 games. Now, obviously, that's cause for concern, but Lee, obviously, you were very balanced about this and said we have been playing Newcastle and Arsenal. Do you think it's the case of fans just getting a bit sort of, dismayed by the recent form, maybe getting a bit carried away by the euphoria of being third after 10 games and not actually realising our place in the food chain, so to speak?
Yeah, I do. I think I will be honest with you. I think the reason I was more balanced is that yesterday was just hectic for me. I had a game myself, then I was straight out. So luckily, I didn't get a chance to kind of consume the social media meltdown, because I guarantee that's what it was, without still having a proper look, because I just don't want to do it. I've just got better uses of my weekend, to be fair. But yeah, I was a bit more balanced because of that. But yeah, exactly what you said. I think if you'd have told me that we're going into next week's game against Ipswich, what are we, 11 points clear of the bottom 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Who wouldn't have taken that? This season's all about... The worst thing that Nuno could have done was win them 3 games on the trot and take us third, because ultimately, the expectation level... We've said this before about Forest as a football club. You win 5 or 6 games and the expectation all of a sudden increases tenfold. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think sometimes you need a couple of results like we've just had just to temper those expectations a bit. And I still maintain that if we were to finish... I don't mind if people say this is a little bit pessimistic, but if we finish 13th this season, I think that would be a very good season for us.
Oh, God, yeah, easy, yeah.
I still stick by that. I think to have... I was saying to someone yesterday, actually, to have 19 points on the board after 12 games, I think... Dreamland's probably a bit too far, but it really, from last season, with our last season finished, and we managed to keep our better players, and of course that made sure that the expectation did increase a little bit. But yeah, I mean, we've had a great start to the season. We're 7th in the Premier League. I mean, we've got a tough run of fixtures. I'm sure we'll come on to it, but the Ipswich game, on the basis that we've lost 2 games on the trot, is quite important now, just to get that that next positive result. But come on, things aren't as bad as some people are making out. Yeah, maybe like I said before on this, I don't get too high with the highs anymore. I don't get too low with the lows. Winning 3 games on the trot in the Premier League was great. Of course it was. We were all buzzing. All the pundits are talking positively about us. But like I've said already on this podcast, we've not now become a bad team and everyone's rubbish because we've lost to Arsenal away and Newcastle at home.
We're so far earning about 1.5 points a game, aren't we? That would get us 18, won it from 12, so we're on 19. Well, if we do 1.5 points per game, that's 57 points over the season. That would have got us 9th last season by 5 points. We would have been 3 points off 8th. And I said this on the last pod, that if we get to the Everton game after that game, which is a halfway point, and we're still in the top half, or even probably I'd say less than the expectation, say top 12, I still think that's very good.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah,
I still think, and I'm still looking at it in this sense, that if we get to the last 2 months, 6 weeks, 2 months of the season, and we haven't got to worry about that bottom 3 still, I'll be pretty satisfied. It'd just be nice to not have the drama at the end of the season. I'd settle for a boring Fulham-style season like they had last season, when they got all the points quite early. Everyone spoke about them being tipped for Europe, but then they tailed off when teams started showing them a bit more respect, started beating them. I'd settle for that sort of season, I really would.
That bottom 3's kind of gone away from me now, because like you said, Lee, we're 11 points clear of it. We've already got 19 points on the board, so yeah, obviously why we're doing well as we have been doing before these 2 defeats, you've got a dream, like we said, because that's what football's all about. But, still doing pretty well. It's not like we've lost. I'd be really, really concerned if we just lost 3-1 at home to Crystal Palace, and then lost 3-0 away at Leicester. That'd be really
exactly.
That'd be very concerning. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Look at Fulham. Fulham have done really, really well this season. They got hammered yesterday at home by Wolves, who've been terrible. So
they won the last as well.
It just shows you the Premier League has become a lot like the Championship now, in the sense that there is so many sides who are really actually quite close in terms of ability, and on any given day they can dish out a really good performance and give sides a really good beating, as Wolves did yesterday.
Christian, I know you're going to move on in a minute, but it did make me feel a lot better that Man City got absolutely thumped by Tottenham, who actually their previous result was a 2-1 loss to Ipswich at home. And like Reece says, it is just so topsy-turvy this season, apart from like Liverpool, and it's brilliant.
Well, Tottenham are the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde side, aren't they?
They are completely. They've got personality disorder.
Who have they got next? I bet if they got someone next who's near the bottom, they'll probably get beat. That's probably what they're like.
Yeah,
very, very
incredible.
But just one more thing before we move on to Steps on Your Thoughts. I think the most disappointing thing from yesterday is I think you're right. In isolation, if you say Forest lose 3-0 at Arsenal, you sort of think, all right, yeah, fair enough. But I think the most disappointing thing for me was after that disastrous second half against Newcastle before the international break, I was expecting a bit more. I was expecting our players to sort of go, you know what, that was bad, unacceptable. It's done now. We'll park it. We'll move on. Yeah, we might lose at Arsenal, but there's ways of losing games, isn't there? And it just seemed exactly when we picked off. I just thought it was like, what have you been doing for 2 weeks? Like, I get some of you have been away for international duty, but it just felt like, what have you been doing? And I think that's the most frustrating part for me because, we're going to lose games. We're not going to Forest in the Premier League. We're going to lose games. I think the most of the predictions had us were, 17th at best for most people.
Relegated, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we are going to lose games, but I
agree with the manner. Yeah, I agree with the manner of the defeat. It was, let's not beat around the bush. We were crap yesterday.
We were really bad.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, really
bad. The international break, unfortunately, has seen us have as top scorer fly around the world to play some fishermen because I think who did they play? Vanuatu, Samoa. These are like
Samoa. They're quite big people. I wouldn't fight with Samoans.
These are probably worse than San Marino. That's the level we're playing again. So he's been on a plane for 2 days there and back, so he couldn't play yesterday. So what's that like for Arsenal taking Saka out? Is he their top scorer? I'm guessing Saka. It must be Jesus never. What he didn't play. Jesus doesn't score, does he? You've also then we're missing as number 10 in Gibbs White, which is like taking Odegaard out for them. We're missing the other guy who can play number 10. Who's been really good this season, Anderson. We've had Murillo flying to Brazil, who's not played a single minute, so he's just been sat on a plane. And they've had their 2 best players fresh. They didn't go on international duty, Saka and Odegaard. They probably went and put the trotters up in Dubai for a week and then come back fresh. So I'm kind of going to write this one off personally. I know as frustrating and disappointing as it was, my worry would be if it was to perform like that against Ipswich. So we'll see on Saturday. If we go out on Saturday, beat Ipswich, play well, this Arsenal game gets quickly forgotten about.
That's just very true. What I will say to counter that, without one sort of I pay that back a little bit, is obviously Gabriel played for Brazil and he went away for Arsenal. Obviously, they had no Declan Rice.
Guess he might be used to it though.
Maybe, but Rice was injured.
I bet.
But
Rice has not been that good, has he, this season? What they've stuck? How much did they pay for Marino? 60 million. They've stuck him in there yesterday.
Well, he's still £100 million signing Declan Rice.
I know he is, but
he only played because Rice was injured.
They can replace him with like a £60 million centre mid there. You've got Jorginho in there who's won everything, who's experienced.
Yeah, they got better players. I don't dispute that, but they have had the same international schedule and turnover as we've had, for example. So it's not.
They've not had the top scorer fly to New Zealand, though, have they? And they couldn't play him yesterday.
Oh no, but
look at how we've said with Arsenal. You've took Odegaard out of that team, and they've been proper stutterer this season. Sticking back in yesterday, and they looked a completely different side.
Well, at least that's that moved on. We can move on to Steps on It Thoughts now. So, which is
Red side of the Trent. Slept on it thoughts.
All right, so we'll start with. We'll go Rich. Why do worse teams than us go to places like Arsenal put up a better fight? Awful is an understatement. Gareth said, disappointing result and performance, but it doesn't warrant the meltdown that some have had on here. Arsenal are a very good side. We won't be the first and won't be the last to be made to look very ordinary by them. A win next weekend is quickly forgotten. Not your burner account, Reece. Bennett said, it was game over from the lineups. Zero creativity and little fight in the midfield was always going to mean that Odegaard and Saka were going to have a field day. Poor overall from everyone. K+ in function said echoes of away performances past. Nuno didn't seem to want to repeat the Liverpool formation. The tactics were confused. The Arsenal threats were known, but nothing was done to combat them. The solidity is beginning to fray. This is going to happen at some point. Ryan Wise said, similar to Newcastle game, we lost the midfield battle. Frustrating thing was they kept cutting the ball back to the edge of the box. We didn't learn and kept allowing them to do it. Looked defeated 5 minutes in. No fight, which is not like us. Forest fan Damley says, one ugly performance. Outclassed all over the pitch. Murillo's free kick summed it up. For those who didn't watch, right at the end of the game, from about 40 yards out, he hit a free kick, and much like that header in the first half, went straight into the top tier of the Emirates pretty much. It was awful. No one was on it. They wanted it more. Whatever is up with Gibbs, White, Anderson, we need them back before next weekend. A lacklustre performance if ever I saw one. The final whistle was a relief. It was. Premier Elliott said, sadly not our day. Outclassed, but we'll learn and improve. Needed more creativity. Today's fact is in 1993, a man in Brazil who robbed a factory of its glue was arrested 36 hours later, still in the factory he was robbing because he was stuck to the glue he was stealing. I'm sure there's an analogy somewhere to do with Forest Long there. Tom Newton said, as much as we've been good this season, performance today was very reminiscent of the last 2 seasons. Don't want to be too critical as we were up against a top side, just too passive at times, and Arsenal picked us off. Back home next week, Odegaard ran the show. Paul Galt said Forest couldn't keep possession. They were not themselves in midfield. Not sure Ward-Prowse offers too much. We missed Anderson, Gibbs-White and Wood starting. Hopefully we'll sort it out for Ipswich next week, or we could nosedive into 0 points for 4 games played. You Reds. Jerry Pritchard said, was worried when the team came out. Looked like suicide with the 3 at the top, as it proved. Quite a few players were just dreadful, but especially Ward-Prowse was at fault for all 3 goals. Alanga was also very poor, but at least he was hooked. Odegaard was simply fantastic, though. Martin Fretwell said, lost to the better side, but we were poor and disinterested. Carl Booth said, when you play Arsenal, any top 6 team, you hope to catch them on an off day. Today wasn't one of those. Never landed a glove on them, couldn't handle their attack. We looked slow and weak and offered nothing. Still a great start, all things considered. And lastly, Ian said, give players like Odegaard and Saka that kind of room, and you're asking to be punished. Lucky to only be 1-0 down at half time. The room party had to shoot was criminal. They were at half pace too. Had we looked like troubling them, they would have gone up several gears, easily beaten, disappointing. So we'll move on to some player performances now. And before that, firstly, thank you to everyone who's joined in, because it's not been an easy listen so far. And those who have been commenting on the live chat. But Adam, I'll start with you. And the reason why I'm going to start with you is because I'm going to give you Matt Sells, because you said last week after the Newcastle game, which I had issue with the 3rd goal, I thought he was beating far too easy from there. You said that this is the issue with having a mid-table goalkeeper. He's going to have like spells where he was up for player of the month last month, and the last 2 games he's gifted away 2 goals. I would strongly argue. What did you think yesterday? Because I think that obviously he made some good saves. So there was one from Saka in particular, which is a really good save out from in the first half. But that goal was just abject goalkeeping. But yeah, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, hard to say because everyone in front of him wasn't that good either, protecting him. It's weird because the first goal, I thought, even though Saka's got all that time, I know he's absolutely whipped it and it's gone straight past him, but it's not in the top corner. I just think, like we've said, he's a mid-table goalkeeper. I think he needs a lot of protection, and unfortunately, to be a better goalkeeper, you have to have several things that you're good at. He's very good at kicking the ball and shot stopping, as most goalkeepers are. But if he was going to be another level of goalkeeper, command of his area and everything else, like David Raya is, who's very good off his line and commanding of his area and can kick a ball as well. That's why why Arsenal and why Arteta basically binned off Ramsdale very quickly and got him in to level up their goalkeeping department. So it is an area that I think we need to strengthen. It's going to be interesting to see what we do in the next few weeks if Sells kind of continues to let goals in like that, because Miguel is definitely there in waiting and kind of looks like a goalkeeper that, especially from crosses and that, will just come out and just pluck them from the air, you'd like to think. But I don't want to kind of dwell on it too much, because everyone in front of Matt Sells was equally just as poor, unfortunately. You're going to find really hard to kind of pick out a performance out there that's above a 6, aren't you? Really, from the week, unfortunately. So I don't envy you, and I was really happy that you were hosting this weekend, to be honest. So yeah, I kind of don't want to dwell on it too much, but yeah, it is what it is.
One thing I will say is I appreciate this is a very difficult question, and again, devil's advocate. And again, perhaps rather reactionary given the last 2 weeks. I don't want to fall in the trap of being a reactionary fan, but I think that as a Forest fan, you sort of are by association, really. But would you say you Sells for this next run where we've got a lot of difficult games coming up, where you sort of want a more experienced, steady, stable like defence, and then look to bring Miguel in from January? Or do you think that you wouldn't consider taking him out the firing line yet? That's for all of you, by the way.
I think you've got to give Sells this opportunity. I think if he starts making those mistakes more often, like if he made one against Ipswich next week, and then we kind of stuck with him for the 2 Manchester games, and it kind of carried on, then you've got an argument. But I think at the moment you just kind of stick with him. I think you throw Miguel in definitely for FA Cup, regardless of who we play, and then I think if we're safe from like February, March time, then I think you can kind of like say to Miguel, right, your opportunity is now. And you say to Matt Sells, look, we want to try, see what Miguel can offer, and kind of go from there. But that's a conversation for the manager, a difficult one at that. I'd have thought.
Very difficult one, yeah.
No, I think Sells is our number one in terms of from the manager's perspective. I know we had a conversation to give Miguel a chance a few weeks back, and then Sells was excellent, and he got a Player of the Month nomination, wasn't he? So, there is going to be spells with, he's I'd say a decent goalkeeper at this level. So there is going to be spells when he's playing above that level, like he has been the last month, and there's going to probably be times where you look at certain goals and think, well, he probably should have saved that, but that's the level he's at. That's why I said about in the summer that he's probably one player who will look on for the future as an area we can improve. Hence why we tried to get, Kelleher, etc. in the summer, and why he's being touted for like 30 million rather than the 5 million we spent on Sells. So no, I'd be very, very surprised if Miguel played before the FA Cup. Very surprised. He'll obviously play in the FA Cup, like Adam said, whoever we play, because you've got to give him a chance in that competition. But I think Sells is Nuno's number one. The 2 goals, what we're mentioning, could he have probably done better with them? Probably, but I wouldn't say he's committed any absolute howlers, has he? Personally, even the Brighton one where the free kick, it's not an absolute howler. He's done some things what, from a goalkeeping perspective, he probably shouldn't have done. But it's not an absolute howler where we look at goals from what Matt Turner conceded last season where it's gone straight through him. Yeah. So I'd be very, very surprised if Nuno was to change him. And I think overall the whole season Sells has been pretty solid, hasn't he? I know we can say there's been moments where he should have done better. And like Lee's mentioned on his podcast before, goalkeepers are always under that scrutiny. But I think he's and even if he was to be safe with 10 games to go, I'd still expect Sells to see out the season unless he just started, like I said, committing absolute howlers like Matt Turner did. And obviously that's why Cooper changed him at that moment. But we'll have to see going forward. I'm sure Miguel will get his opportunity in the FA Cup. And it's a shame, really, like I said before, we could have seen more of certain players if we'd have gone far in the Carabao. But that's why some players have had limited chances, unfortunately.
Lee, anything to
add? Not a great deal from that, to be fair. I just think one of 2 things will happen for Miguel to get a chance. If Sells has got quite fortunate against Newcastle and Arsenal, that the 2 goals that we're kind of pinpointing is errors, as Reece has just said. They've not cost us points, have they? I mean, we were 2-1 down against Newcastle and we were 2-0 down yesterday. I think if he makes a Turner-style howler and it costs us points in a game, then it does become a real conundrum for Nuno, because that would give him the perfect chance to kind of say, this is the squad now, the competition's red hot, I'm going to go with Miguel. But again, has Carlos Miguel got better without actually playing for us?
I was just thinking
that's me
what
playing
devil's more players, isn't it?
That's me playing devil's advocate a little bit. I don't want that to sound harsh. He was okay in the Carabao Cup and made a couple of good saves. One, I think, in particular from Gordon near the end. But people are crying out for him to play. We don't really know much about him, do we? I think if it was an established goalkeeper in this country, a Premier League keeper, sat there, would there be a different discussion? I'm not sure, because I do think Sells has given himself a bit of credit in the bank. But yeah, I tend to agree with what Reece finished with. I just think he'll see the season out. I really do, unless obviously he gets injured or suspended or something like that. But yeah, I just think he will see the season out. He's out of contract in the summer, isn't he?
Might have another year.
No,
right, okay,
Souls has got a couple of years because I did look on transfer market.
Okay, fair enough. But I do think, because of his age, I do anticipate that it'll be something we try and address in the summer.
Yeah, I agree with Lee there. It's one of them, because we've only seen Miguel once, you kind of want to see him and see what he's actually like. Similar, I guess, to Sousa, really, and obviously Silva, because we've only seen them in little tiny bunches. So, yeah, but I think Sousa is going to be number one unless he starts Costa's point. I think Lee hit the nail on the head there.
Definitely, yeah. Race, I'm going to give you Jota Silva. Obviously, touched upon earlier. Just the reason why I picked him out is that he gave the ball away or lost possession 8 times, which was the 3rd highest in the Forest team, despite only playing half the game. And yeah, just I don't know. There were some bits I saw from him that I liked. I thought that to get an position to shoot was very unfortunate to hit Woods. I thought obviously he was in the right area for this loud goal as well. I just thought he wasn't great. I didn't think it was a great advert to sort of say Elanga's maybe out of form, pick me. I just thought that he should have been booked. When he made a foul and then threw the ball away, he was very fortunate not to get carded for that. I don't know. I wasn't fully convinced. What did you think?
No, I'm not going to go in on him, because the problem was for Jota Silva, he's come on to try and make an impact, and within 5 minutes of the second half starting, the game's done into.
Yeah,
like I said earlier, we if we could kept it at 1-0 till probably the 70th minute, that's when you want players like Jota Silva and Hudson-Odoi or Sousa, when he come alive and say, look, can you give us a moment of brilliance to get us, nick us a point. The one thing I did note with Jota Silva is that when he did get the ball on the right, it just looked, rather than running it, I think it was Calafiori who's played left back then, he just touched it and then decided to cross it straight away. Rather than getting it and driving at the left back, as we've seen with him, I just thought that was a little bit odd. I'm not going to go too much on the losing possession stats, because as an attacking player, you can make your stats look good if you're passing sideways, whereas I want my attacking players to be trying to thread the ball through the eye of a needle if that's the only option that's on. So, attacking players are going to give the ball away. That's just a fact, because they're trying to make things happen for that one time when they do get it through. And, you obviously get a good chance to score from it. So I guess if Elanga has got this shoulder injury, and even if he is back, even if he is fit, shall I say, Elanga for Saturday, it gives Nuno a decision to make. Does he give Jota a chance? I think most fans are crying out for that, to see what he's like from the start. And he's probably has warranted a chance from the start. So if that happens, then you kind of say to him, well, here's your chance, Jota. Show us what you made of from the start against Ipswich at home, which on paper, I know game isn't played on paper, is a game where you think attacking players should be doing things. But no, I'm not going to go over the top on him. He was trying, wanted, but unfortunately the game was done after 50 minutes. That was the problem yesterday.
No, that's fair enough. Lee, I appreciate obviously you've not seen that much, but I'm going to give you potentially another sort of hot iron, if you like, because again, depending on where you looked yesterday, he was either finished or showing signs of what he was before.
I know what you're going to say. I know exactly what you're going to give me.
Big T.
Tyrell.
Yeah, Big T. I actually thought he was all right yesterday. And obviously, Adam touched upon earlier, one of the brightest sparks. SofaScore weren't so kind. They gave him a 6.3. But I actually thought that given the task he had at hand, he had no service all game. He had his back to goal all game. He had the ball pelted at him all game the time he was on the pitch. And I actually thought he did all right. He had a really good recovery tackle or two. I thought that, he looked pretty useful, I thought. But what do you think?
I'm glad you've given me this one, because I think, having not seen the game, it's kind of a good one to give a bigger sort of look at the picture, I suppose. The thing, when more people realise that Taiwo Awoniyi is not all of a sudden going to become a different type of striker. When we first signed him, we loved the fact that he was a big, unorthodox bully of a centre forward. Now, all of a sudden, because Woods kind of got a little tiny bit more finesse when it comes to finishing and racing through and that sort of stuff, all of a sudden we want you to be the same. Well, he's never going to become that. He's always going to be this unorthodox. I don't want to use the word because it sounds a bit detrimental, but it's not. He's a bit clumsy, isn't he? Let's face it. He's a big handful of a striker, and he puts himself about. And do you know, if you said to a centre forward, maybe not Arsenal's, to a centre back, maybe not Arsenal's because they're world class players, but certainly most of the other clubs in this division, would you rather defend against for 90 minutes? Chris Wood or Taiwo Awoniyi? They'd probably pick Wood because he's probably just a little bit easier to. Even if he's not easy to keep out from scoring and that sort of stuff, he's probably easier to read in terms of what he's going to do. He's going to get into that box. He's going to look for the deliveries that are coming in. Whereas Awoniyi will happily kind of run himself into corners and stuff like that and try and put pressure on and make things difficult for them. So, yeah, it's intriguing that obviously I'll take your guys' view as gospel. If you thought he played okay, I trust that the meltdown was. I did see a few tweets this morning when I logged in. I logged in for about 30 seconds and decided, no, that's a bad idea. And it was all about Taiwo because it was all literally saying, like you said, one said he was finished. Well, he's no different to how he was when we first signed him. The difference is this season he probably just needs that goal, doesn't he? He needs that one goal. I think the beauty of yesterday was that he actually played. He got some more minutes into his legs. And I think, like I've said before, I think the last time I was on the podcast, it's good that we can keep getting him some minutes because while we've only got the two strikers, we're going to need to use him. Wood can't. You'd hate to think at some point it's going to break down, but Wood's not going to play every game at his age, is he? Let's face it. I just can't see it. I'd be very surprised. So yeah, the pleasing aspect was definitely that he got some more minutes. And yeah, I just think people need to kind of stop wanting him to be this elegant player boasting loads of finesse. He's never going to be that sort of striker, ever. He
literally had pretty much nothing. He was scrapped and he put himself about and that's all he could do.
Yeah.
The problem is, obviously, we go back to the start of last season where he just looked pace-wise, and that didn't, obviously, the Man U goal springs to mind, even though, like you said, Lee, ended that clumsily, but the pace, what he had, it just doesn't look that sharp anymore, does he? That's the problem. But unfortunately, you're not going to get him up to sharpness if you're giving him 10 minutes here and there. So he did what he could do yesterday. He just was feeding on absolute scraps. So
the one is 27 as well. Who's actually writing these things on social media? He's finished at 27. Come on. We've not become that sort of fan base, I know. I find that absolutely ludicrous. He's hardly played. He's been injured. He's had loads of struggles. But do you know what? He seems like a good character in the dressing room. He seems like he's always got a smile on his face. He's always determined to do well. And we're saying he's finished at 27. Jesus Christ, that is fair sometimes, honestly.
Well, that's social media, and everyone's got an opinion. But he needs, we've said this on the pod all year, he needs minutes, doesn't he? He's not going to... he's not going to come on for 10 minutes and score every game or start, ragdolling defenders for 10 minutes. It just doesn't work like that in football. You could bring on the Erling Haaland for probably 10 minutes, and I doubt he'd probably score 10 goals a season. That's just how it is. You've got to get minutes in his legs. And Nuno tried that yesterday, and the scraps he had, he tried. He couldn't really do much more, could he, unfortunately? So
we go back to the Sells thing as well, don't we? Like we said about Sells, he's got credit in the bank. You look at Taiwo. I mean, we're probably still a Premier League club because of his goals.
No, we are. There's no doubt about that.
First season we were back, and then obviously last season he started well, got the injury. I mean, God, just get off his case a little bit. And I mean,
WT Analysis mentioned this, that we're going to need him in December because the games are now. Like the Christmas period in England, as we all know, is hectic. You're going to need the squad. This is where like people with. I know we've said Yates and Dominguez are undroppable, but there is going to be times where, they're playing well, but you're going to have to rotate the squad. And this is where you need your Danilos, your Sangares. I know that won't be music to people's ears, but it's a squad game in the Premier League. And this is why we've broadened his horizons and got a better squad because they've all got to chip in. And especially this month. I mean, how many games have got in December? 7, maybe?
I think it's 7 or 8.
City, United, Villa, Brentford, Tottenham, Everton.
Yeah,
and obviously, and with City and United, you've got them in close proximity. Tottenham and Everton are close proximity. So we're going to need Taiwo and we're going to need a squad next month. That's for sure.
I was about to chime in and say I think there is going to be a game this month that will kind of kickstart Tyro's season off. I do think there'll be a time. I do think there'll be a time when he gets like a winner or an equaliser, and it'll kind of give him that kind of boost. And yeah, we all like you said, Reece. It's a squad game now. You got 5 substitutes, and Nuno's not not been afraid to use them at all.
No.
In the last few weeks. So,
it wouldn't surprise me.
Is good.
Yeah, that was brilliant. It wouldn't surprise me if Tyro started at City or United.
No, either. With 2 games a week, I wouldn't be surprised either. Like, it's a case of picking your poison, really. Do you want to go up against 5'3" in attitude, or do you want to go against like Ruben Diaz? So it's up to you.
Well, City are vulnerable at the minute, so Tyro might be ideal to just jump into the mix.
Dear me. But no, I'm very much still team Tyro. I don't know. I kind of see what you're saying, right? I don't think he necessarily had a chance to sort of show if he's still got the legs or not. It's like we weren't really picking in balls behind him and chase after yesterday, were we? So we couldn't really see if he could run without like putting up or getting away from his men either. But I thought, to be fair, Saliba and Gabriel weren't exactly enjoying marking him whenever it did come his way. He's like Lee said, he's chaos, isn't he? He's a bit like, and Liverpool have spent £80 million on a chaos striker in Darwin Núñez, someone who's unpredictable, someone who the ball bounces off, and defenders hate marking. So, I think he deserves a bit of slack. I didn't think he was that bad yesterday at all, and like some of the reaction was a bit over the top. But yeah. Anyway, lastly, we'll look ahead to Ipswich game, which is one of Elliot's favourite winnable games, if you like. Given the run we've got and we're on, obviously, like we touched upon, it's now Newcastle, Arsenal, Ipswich, City, United, Brentford, Villa, might be the wrong way around, Spurs, and then Everton. Realistically, you're going to have to look at Ipswich and say that we're going to need to get a win there. If we go into Christmas with 20 plus points on the boards, that's a hell of an achievement, I think, for Forest. Because you're looking at you going into the last 5 months of the season saying win a game a month, you're pretty much safe. So I think that if we can, that needs to be one where we really do need to get the business done. I don't get how we do it, really. But Adam, what's your sort of thoughts going into the game? And do you think that, or what have you made of Ipswich so far this season? Because I know you've not necessarily been that complimentary.
I mean, I've not watched them loads, but I think in the games I have, I think they've always struggled in certain areas of their team that they have not addressed. Like, right fullback is an absolute mess for them. I watched the lad against Brentford and he was a car crash. Midfield duo are championship, lower league championship, and have performed above their levels. I think everywhere else is pretty strong, actually. I think like Liam Delap has been kind of an emergence this season for him and done really well, considering he didn't score that many goals for Hull last season while he was on loan there. So that's been a good purchase for Ipswich. I'm talking to Ben Bloom, who's going to come on the pod, give us a bit more of an insight. But whenever I've watched them, they've looked kind of all right to get to the final third and then kind of just not quite got the quality. And I do think midfield is going to be a big one if we can assert dominance in midfield against them, and we have asserted dominance against other teams in the division so far this season, then I think it's going to be a good afternoon for us. I do think that, and it's a game where it's going to be tough because Ipswich have shown that they can be resilient, and they've got results away at Spurs like we saw the other week. They've got good results against Villa and other teams. But I don't see why we shouldn't beat them if we're on our game. And the players have now got a week where they can kind of get their arse into gear as such and kind of give themselves a kick up the backside because they've had 2 bad results. And now they've got to come out on Saturday and show us that they do want to get up the league and progress and show that fight. And if they do that and put 100% in, then there's no reason why we can't get a positive result on Saturday.
No, I'd agree with that. Reece, what about yourself? I mean, obviously Nuno, I don't want to jinx it, against the new promoted side has actually been pretty ruthless. I think obviously if you look back, I mean, I know obviously we drew at Luton last season. I think that's the only blip really. Obviously we beat
Sheffield and Burnley.
Sheffield United, Burnley pretty convincingly. This season we beat Southampton away, beat Leicester away very convincingly. So he's going to run 4 wins in a row pretty much against the newly promoted sides. Do you expect that to continue? Do you think that that's something we can sort of lean on as a positivity positive beacons, I should add, ahead of next Saturday? Or
Yeah, I'm actually looking quite forward to watching Ipswich later because that'll be a really good game because obviously it's Amarin's first Man U game. They're at home. They're going to be very much like us. These are the games that they wanted to have seen at Portman Road for all them years they've been out of the Premier League. So I'm actually looking forward to watching it. It's probably the first time where I'll actually be kind of concentrating on an Ipswich game because when they played Liverpool, I think it was the last time I seen them fully. We was all in Nav thinking about us not beating Bournemouth again. But yeah, I mean, I know speaking directly to you here, Elliot, about you all win it, all games are winnable, which they are. But if I gave somebody 500 quid and said, which one do you fancy winning more, Arsenal away and Ipswich at home, without hesitation, be saying Ipswich at home. So it's a game we've got to be we've got to look to win that because we're going to be favourites, aren't we, going into that game? So yeah, I get the feeling that if we don't win that game, then a lot of fans might start to get a little bit jittery, as they did against, when we didn't beat Luton last season, where I know people were saying we took Luton lightly, but I don't disagree with that. I thought we were absolutely cruising against Luton. We were 2-0 up, having battered them, and then we just showed them too much respect by sitting back when we should have just carried on doing what I was doing and we would have won the game. But that was under a different manager. But like I said earlier, it probably gives Jota Silva a chance if Alanga's injured. If James Ward-Prowse is playing, I think he's got to start performing because, I don't think it's worked so far. And he actually did put some decent set pieces in yesterday. I know the narrative is that he didn't, but he actually did. The Yates header being one straight on his head. So, we need to start seeing him performing. Obviously, we're hoping that Anderson or both Gibbs White are going to be back. I know, I've spoke to fans on Twitter about Gibbs White, but you're not going to stop him going to England. The club can't do anything about it apart from applying pressure. He's going to want to go. It's his dream to play for England. And unfortunately, the reality is, as a kid, it's not going to be his dream to play for Nottingham Forest. And that is the harsh reality, unfortunately. But I get why fans are dismayed because we've got this bias towards Forest and we need them back, as we saw yesterday, because without them type of players, it was a massive struggle for us to connect defence to attack. So hopefully they're back. And if we have got them back and Wood starting as well, hopefully shook off the jet lag from playing bloody Vanuatu, then I'm confident and I think we'll win the game. So yeah, I mean, do you want a prediction? Shall I give you a prediction?
You can give me a prediction if you want.
Yeah, I'll go. We'll see how Ipswich gone today. So, I think today might bring a lot into it, but I'll go for 2-0 Forest. I think if we are on it, we'll beat Ipswich. There's no doubt about that. In my opinion, it's just that if we show them a little bit too much respect, like we did Luton last season, or not at it at this level, you're going to get punished.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, I mean, just having a look at Luton's away forms, pretty interesting. So obviously they lost away at Man City 4-1 to be expected.
Ipswich, I mean.
Yeah,
said Luton.
Luton
on the mind.
The bloody won yesterday, didn't
they're
they?
still in lucky, it seems. Yeah. Oh God, I hate them. But yeah, so Ipswich obviously lost 4-1 at Man City. Obviously that was Rodri Man City as well. Surprised if it's a lead in that game, didn't they? I think Sammy Smolik scored. Then they drew 0-0 at Brighton, which very good result, all considered. A bit fortuitous, but you take the points at this level, no one cares. Went to Southampton, got a last-minute equaliser to draw that 1-1. Again, that might have been a missed opportunity for them. Got absolutely hammered at West Ham, lost 4-1. And Narry lost at Brentford with 10 men. They lost 4-3. And then, obviously, had that win away against Spurs. So the away form's actually not been too bad, all things considered. Maybe a bit of luck involved here and there. But what are you sort of expecting from the game?
I actually think it might be a good thing that they beat Tottenham, because I think it will stop teams from sort of discrediting them and what they can come and do. I think they'll have a go. I think they'll have that kind of, again, a term that I don't particularly like, 'cause it can sound derogatory, but they're going to be plucky, aren't they? They're going to come, they're going to try and have a go. They've got nothing really to lose. They'll see it as a game, certainly against us, as well as we've started. They'll see it as one that they can take points from. So yeah, I do anticipate it'll be a tough test. Hopefully we'll have some players back, like Reece said. I think we will as well. I think it's funny because before the Arsenal game, I kind of half tongue in cheek said if it was up to me, I'd potentially look at not risking anyone that has got a niggle. Have a look at some of the other players, just because of the Ipswich game coming as the one next. So, hopefully it'll be full strength, and I do think we'll win. I think they might score. I think it might be 2-1. And I'd just like to apologise to everyone in the Vanuatu Forest Supporters Club for the disrespect that they've had on this podcast this morning as well.
Adam, I think a position from you, to be fair. What are you going for?
3-1. I
3-1.
do think Ipswich will score, probably Delap, unfortunately. But I just think that would be like a consolation, unfortunately, for them. Unfortunately for us. So I
hope you're right. I'm going to agree with Lee. I'm going to go 2-1 Forest, but I do think it's going to be quite tricky. I don't think it's going to be as rude cut and shut as we hope it would be. But I just hope we're going to be professional enough to sort of get a job done, move on, and then go into December with 22 points on the board, wouldn't it? Which would be an incredible achievement, really. Like, you're looking at at that point, again, 5 more wins, you're more than safe. So it's not all bad. It's all gloom. I mean, worst case scenario for Forest this weekend is we end the weekend in 8th place, because obviously Newcastle have got West Ham on Monday. So, it could be a lot worse. You could be 5 points in the Championship drop zone, having drawn away at Preston, like a certain team down the road. So it's not all bad. But obviously we'll have to take that on the chin yesterday. But it is what it is. This is football. So we'll be back in the midweek with a Ipswich preview, as Adam's alluded to earlier, and then we'll be back properly one Sunday with another sort of a full match preview after the game. So until then, try and enjoy your week as best you can. Always difficult after a Forest loss, but we'll bounce back and come back stronger, as the saying goes. Until then, come on, you Reds.